Okay, so one more classification I would like to look at, that is number 5, deterministic and random signal. Okay, so what is meant by deterministic? A signal is said to be deterministic if you could express it in a mathematical form. If you can express the signal in a mathematical form. Okay, you can express the signal in mathematical form or even in graphical form, that means you are able to draw it. Okay, such signals are called deterministic. So that means you know exactly, you have the knowledge of the signal at different instance of time. Okay, whether it is continuous time or discrete time, if you are able to specify the values of the signal for each domain, then we call it as deterministic signal. And what is random signal? Random signal, you can't do that. Okay, so if the signal value cannot be predicted, you have no knowledge about how the signal is going to be, what shape it will take in the next instance, what will be its value. So if the signal value cannot be predicted, okay, or it cannot be represented in mathematical form or graphical form, then you say it is random signal. So random signals are usually considered by using statistical means. Okay, so they are analyzed using statistical tools. So, okay, what are statistical tools? You can talk about what is the average value that you expect, what is the mean square value that you expect, mean, average, standard deviation, this type of things you can talk about. Okay, so they are statistical tools. Okay, so sin omega t, cos omega t, all this kind of expressions, if you can give, they are deterministic signal. Okay, or even if you can draw some signal, that is determined. But random signal, they are by definition they are random. You do not know, so it doesn't repeat, or it is never periodic. Okay, but it could be power signal. The example of a random signal is noise. Okay, example is noise. Okay, so you don't know exactly how much amplitude you will come next instant of time, but you can specify, okay, depending upon the temperature, the noise level will increase, and the noise will continue to exist from minus infinity to plus infinity, and so it has infinite power in it, so therefore they are power signal. But it is not periodic, it is not deterministic. You can't express noise in a mathematical form or a graphical form. Okay, so you can watch the noise and then you can draw it, but you don't know what will happen after after. So until for certain duration you can observe it and you can plot it maybe by measuring it, but after that you don't know what will happen. So it is never, you don't have any knowledge of how it will look like. You can't predict it. So such signals are called random signal. So that's basically the classification of signal. Now I am moving on to very important topic, which is called standard signals. Okay, so they are sometimes called test signals. Okay, so usually in order to check the performance of systems, we use standard signals. Okay, so they are also called as test signals. Okay, so the number one signal that I want to discuss is called the impulse signal. Impulse signal. Okay, so what is an impulse? So it is defined in the following way mathematically. X of it has some particular representation is denoted by delta of n if it is continuous time, and it is denoted by delta with a square bracket n if it is discrete time. Okay, so what are these? So this is the impulse signal in continuous time. Continuous time impulse, and this is the representation for, or the symbol for, discrete time impulse. The definitions are very different, and therefore you need to be really attentive to understand, especially delta of t. Okay, delta of t, often students find problem with delta of t because it is not a normal function. So usually I said signals are function, but you can say that this is a really an exception where it is not an ordinary function. It is a function, but it is not an ordinary function. So it requires some extra effort in defining this function, okay, because it is not an ordinary function. Okay, so let's look at continuous time impulse definition. So delta of t is undefined when t equal to 0, and 0 for t not equal to 0. So that itself should blow your mind. So then what is it? Okay, delta of t is 0 whenever t is not 0, but at t equal to 0 it is undefined. Okay, and then this is the one part of the definition, and integral delta of t dt from minus infinity to plus infinity, you will get 1. Okay, so these part 1 and part 2 together forms the definition. So if you are asked to define your impulse signal, okay, or unit, it's also called unit impulse signal because the integration will give rise to unity. Okay, so this is the definition of unit impulse signal. So let's try to understand what do we mean by that. Okay, so if you try to plot this signal, again plotting is also really tough for such a signal, but let's try to attempt. So this is our t-axis, and this is amplitude. What we are saying is that everywhere this function is 0 except at t equal to 0. Okay, it's 0. Here all this time it is 0. There is only one time it is non-zero, and that's where it is undefined. So that is here. So undefined means it is having very infinite magnitude. Okay, so you can say it is infinity. So infinity is undefined. So therefore it has only non-zero value at one instant of time. There it is undefined. So this is why I said this is also called Dirac delta function in mathematics. I don't know whether you studied it or not. Dirac delta function. Delta function. That is what the mathematicians will call this function. It's called the Dirac delta function. So this is like a very strong magnitude function for infinitesimally small duration. Okay, so but we can try to understand this function by taking a certain normal function and then use the normal function and we apply the limit to normal functions, ordinary functions, and then try to come to a more better understanding of delta of t. Okay, so let's do that. So consider, so we are now trying to understand more about this Dirac delta function or impulse function. Consider a pulse function. Okay, so let me denote the pulse function like this. So this I will call as delta with a suffix capital delta. Okay, delta with a suffix capital delta of t. So how do I will show it by plotting. How does it look? So this is how it's going to look. It's a pulse function. So pulse means something like this. 0 to delta, its height is 1 by delta. So this is my delta suffix delta t. Okay, everywhere else it is 0, just like the impulse function. Is it an impulse function? No, it's not an impulse function. Now, can we take a limit and make it look like an impulse function? Yes. Okay, so if you look at the definition, the first thing we say is that for delta function, everywhere the function should be 0 whenever t is not equal to 0. But for this function, that is not the case. From 0 to t, it is not 0. But for impulse function, it has to be 0 everywhere except at t equal to 0. Okay, so that is why it is not an impulse function. Secondly, the second part of the definition says that if you integrate this function, you should get 1, which is true. Okay, so if you look at it has that property. So the area inside this pulse is basically 1 by delta height into width, which is equal to 1. So area is 1, irrespective of the value of delta, I have area 1. So what I would try to do is that I will take a limit of this function. So this is an ordinary function, well defined function. Then I say that I will take a limit. In the limit, delta goes to 0, delta of t is equal to delta of t. Okay, so I have a well defined function, an ordinary function. Ordinary function means for every instance of time I have its value well defined. Now I do a limit operation, that is I make the width of the function goes to 0. So then what happens? According to the way it is defined, its amplitude is 1 by delta. So if the width is tending to 0, my height will tends to infinity, such that the area inside is maintained as unity. Okay, so let me just show you that if I reduce the width by some amount like this, then the height will go up, such that the area is again 1. If I further reduce it, okay, then again further its height will go. Okay, so this is how the function changes when I take the limit. Okay, so the function grows taller and taller and slimmer, and in the limit delta, capital delta goes to 0, I have the impulse function. So that gives you a sense of what is this function. Okay, so with the help of a limiting operation applied on a normally defined function, we can understand what is Dirac delta function or unit impulse function. Okay, so let's try another definition. So this is not the only way you can define. There are plenty of ways you can define this function. Yet another way you can define this function is take another ordinary function. Okay, so this time an exponential function. So consider again how do I call it? So x of t or x with a suffix a. Okay, a is basically a parameter of the function of t is equal to a into e raised to minus at. A is a parameter, t is the variable. Okay, and we are considering this function. So let us plot this function. So if I plot this function, how does it look? It is basically okay, so this is not a complete definition. I think this is for t greater than 0 and for greater than or equal to 0, and then 0 for t less than 0. Otherwise again we will have problem. So this is how the exponential decaying function look like. Okay, and at t equal to 0, what is the value of this function? T is equal to 0, the function value is a. Okay, because the exponential will become 1. So here it is here it is a. Here it is a. I am multiplying a into e raised to minus 8. And what is the area? So that is the second part of the definition you have to look at. So again we are claiming that this function, if you take the limit, so right now the limit I am going to take is a tends to infinity. X a of t is equal to delta of t. So that is my claim. So if it has to satisfy this, I should first of all check whether the area under the curve, irrespective of the value of a, it should be equal to 1. So let us check that. The part 2 of the definition of the impulse function is that. So checking the area under the function. So to find the area, what we need to do, we need to take minus infinity to plus infinity x a t dt. So this is what we need to do. But since the function is 0 here, according to the definition, for t less than 0 it is 0, I only need to integrate from 0 to plus infinity. There the function value is a into e raised to minus at dt. Okay, so this is equal to, so a is a constant, I can take it outside and then I can integrate e raised to minus at. So I will get e raised to minus at by minus a, 0 infinity. So I can now cancel this a. So I will get minus e raised to minus infinity is 0 minus e raised to 0, that is 1. So which is 0 minus 1, and negative of that is 1. So that shows that the area under the function is unity, which satisfies the second part of the definition for impulse function. Okay, second part of the definition of the impulse function says that it has an area equal to unity. Now here a is the parameter that we are taking the limit operation, but since the area is unity independent of a, it doesn't change. Okay, it will remain same. Now what will be the change that will happen when a become bigger and bigger? Obviously, since a is the height here, this will rise, and a is also the decaying factor. As the decaying factor increases, it will decay faster, like this. So as you further, so this is the new value of a. If you further increase the value of a, then the height will go, but the spread of the function will quickly reduce. Okay, so it will decay faster and faster, and you can see now what is the way things are happening. The function is become slimmer and taller. okay, maintaining the area inside it as unity. So that is another way you can think about the impulse function. Impulse function can be written in so many different ways as the limit of various ordinary function. One more example. Okay, example or case 3 or case 3. So here we are taking another parameter x sigma of t is equal to 1 by sigma square root of 2 pi into e raised to minus t square by 2 sigma square. So this function, probably you are familiar with this function. This function has a name. It's called the Gaussian function, or it's also called the normal distribution function. It is a very important function in statistics. Its plot is like a bell-shaped curve, like this. Okay. So it is like a bell-shaped curve. Now, if t equal to 0, e raised to 0 will give you 1, and then here I have 1 by sigma. So the height of the function is basically 1 by sigma into 2 pi. Okay. Now again, the second part of the definition says that the area inside the curve has to be this area we evaluate. It has to be unity. So actually it is a normalized Gaussian function, so area inside is unity, but if you want to check it, you can do that. So integral x sigma of t from minus infinity to plus infinity dt. If you check this area, so this is a even function. What is on the left is same as what is on the right, and therefore it's an even function of time, and you can write it as 2 times integral 0 to plus infinity 1 by sigma square root of 2 pi into e raised to minus t square by 2 sigma square dt. Okay, so all the constants we can take outside, so that will be square root of 2 by pi, and then there is a 1 by sigma here, and then integral 0 to infinity e raised to minus t square by 2 sigma square dt. So now the integration, this is called a Gaussian integral. So it's a standard integral. So integral 0 to infinity e raised to minus alpha x square dx, you can get it as square root of pi by alpha. So that is the value of this integral. So we will just use this result here. So 1 by sigma square root of 2 by pi into so here what is alpha? So in our case alpha is 1 by 2 sigma square. So this is equal to square root of pi divided by 1 into 2 sigma square. Am I right? So if you look at this pi will cancel, sigma square will cancel with the sigma outside the square root, and there is a square root of 2 here, square root of 2 here. I think okay, so this result, I think I have a mistake in the formula. So this I think this is from minus infinity to plus infinity. It is square root of pi by alpha. So therefore from 0 to infinity, e raised to minus alpha x square dx is equal to 1 by 2 pi by alpha. So that is the correct thing. So I have to put a 1 by 2 here. So then it will come out as 1. Everything else will cancel. So there is 2 square root of 2 here, which will cancel with this 2. Okay. So this square root of 2, square root of 2, and this is 2. So everything will cancel, and it is equal to 1. Now you can derive, but that's not our focus here. So that is why it will take a little amount of time to show you that. It's not very difficult also. But okay, let us leave that part. If you want, then after the class I can show it. Alright, so we have satisfied the second part of the definition, that irrespective of the value of sigma, I have the area under this particular function x sigma suffix sigma of t is equal to 1. Area under that curve is 1. Now I am going to tell you that if you apply the limit, then in the limit sigma goes to 0. Okay, in the limit sigma goes to 0, the area will not change because area is independent of sigma. We will get back our delta of t. So in the limit sigma is basically standard deviation here. So in the limit sigma goes to 0, x sigma of t. So that is in the limit sigma goes to 0, 1 by sigma square root of 2 pi into e raised to minus t square by 2 sigma square. So this function becomes our delta of t. So area will not change, area will continue because it is independent of sigma, area will continue to be 1. But what happens to the function? If you plot the function, you can see that initially we have the function with some bell-shaped curve like this. Even the shape will not change, but what will happen if sigma becomes 0? Sigma is basically this standard deviation. Okay, so this is what sigma. So if sigma goes to 0, what will happen? And this height I told you, it is basically 1 by sigma square root of 2 pi. So if sigma is reduced, what would happen? This height will increase and the width will reduce. Like this. So as you keep on reducing the sigma, the thing that is going to happen is that it will become slimmer and taller, okay, maintaining the area inside to be unity, and therefore we will get an impulse function. So with many examples, now we have seen that an impulse function is basically an infinite strength function for infinitesimally strong small duration. So that's basically the impulse function. Now there is a very important property that is satisfied by the impulse function. Okay, so what is that property? It's called the sampling property. Sampling property of impulse function. Okay, sampling property of impulse function. What do we mean by that? So it means that integral f of t is some well-defined function, multiply it with a shifted version of impulse function. So delta of t minus tau means a impulse function which is shifted to the right, dt, from minus infinity to plus infinity. If you do this, it will pick up the value of the function f of t at the instant tau. So let's see what is happening here. So let me take some example of f of t. It's some well-defined function. Okay, so something like this. Okay, so this is our f of t, some function f of t, and then depending upon my tau, so let's say tau is equal to some 1.5 or something like that, and then I can draw the impulse function there. So impulse function is so only at tau it is having infinity, so it's a shifted version. Normally unit impulse function is located at t equal to 0, but now we have shifted the impulse function to t equal to tau, and at tau we have a non-zero value which is undefined. Okay, now what we are saying is that if you multiply this function f of t, okay, f of t is this function, with our delta of t, this is our delta of t minus tau, and then integrate. So what will happen? The impulse function will make every other place the function value is multiplied with 0, except at the undefined point where it is at tau. So what is happening is that so this LHS is going to be equal to except at point t equal to 0, everywhere else the function is 0, so it is equal to integral minus infinity to plus infinity. So it only matters the value of the function at f of tau. I can replace f of t with f of tau. Why? Because anyhow I am multiplying with 0. Anyhow I am multiplying it with 0 because delta of t minus tau is 0 for all values of time outside t equal to tau. Okay, so I have just changed t here in the function with the tau. Why did I do that? Because I am multiplying the impulse function is 0 all other places. So whether it is t or tau, it doesn't make any difference in the result, because the result of the product operation is that to make it 0. So I can do this. So therefore, so this is equal to, now f of tau is basically a constant. It is not a depending upon t, I can take it outside, and then I have minus infinity to plus infinity delta of t minus tau. Now what is this one? According to the definition of the impulse function, the second part, this quantity is 1. So therefore this is f of tau into 1, which is f of tau. Okay, so this is called the sampling property of the impulse function. Okay, so any function, if you want to take a sample at some instant of time, and this is what we do in order to convert the continuous time signal to discrete time signal. Okay, so we will sample at a discrete instance of time. So you will multiply this function with the original the impulse to get a sample at one particular point. So if you multiply it at some other instant, you will get sample at that point. Okay, so you only need to shift the impulse function and then multiply it in order to take the sample. Okay, so this is one thing. Now impulse function has even more properties that it satisfies. So one of the properties so let me now go to a definition of another function which is called unit step function, which is related with impulse function. So we are looking at the standard signals. The first signal that we took is impulse function. Now we will look at another function which is called unit step function. So number 2, unit step function. Okay. Unit step function is a much more neat function, but it is connected to the impulse function. I will show you the connection. Unit impulse function is defined as, so let me first show the graph of u of t. So usually it is denoted by u of t. Okay, and u of n is what we will one thing I forgot to do is how is impulse function for discrete time. Okay, I'll come into that. So this is unit step function. So as the name signifies, it step its value to unity from 0. So here it is 0 for negative values of t. So u of t is written as 1 for t greater than or equal to 0. 0 for t less than 0. So that's the definition of u of t. Now I said that this function is related with respect to the unit impulse function. Now what is the relationship? The relationship is this. U of t can be written as integral of delta of t. Okay, minus infinity to t. Okay, integration is from minus infinity to t. So u of t is basically integral of minus infinity to t delta of t. So that's the relationship between step function. So how can we prove this? Or the converse, you can say that delta of t is equal to d by dt of u of t. Or that is another way you can say that unit impulse function is the derivative of the unit step function. Okay. Now how can you say that? So you have to prove it. So if this function delta of t is equal to derivative of u of t, then it has to satisfy the definition of delta of t. So let's check whether So part 1, we have to check whether u of t okay. So first of all, check whether du by dt is it equal to 0 for t not equal to 0. So that is what we need to check first. So if you look at that, so if you look at u of t, it is 0 for left hand side, so derivative of 0 is 0. If you look at t greater than 0, so you have two cases. One is t greater than 0, another is t less than 0. So t greater than 0, it is what? So t greater than 0, it is 1. Okay, so it is a derivative of 1. So it is d by dt of 1, which is 0. T less than 0, it is d by dt of 0, which is also 0. Okay, at t equal to 0, So I think in order to properly satisfy this inequality, I have to put just t greater than 0 here and t less than 0. At t equal to 0, it is undefined. So that way you have to put. Okay. Then at t equal to 0, what is the case? At t equal to 0, just before it is at 0 minus, at 0 minus, or I can say u of 0 minus is equal to 0, and at u of 0 plus it is equal to 1. Okay. Now if it is like that, then limit or I hope in calculus you have studied limit, limit whether the limit exists or not, etc. So t tends to 0, u of t is undefined. Now if it has to be well defined, what is the requirement? U of 0 minus and u of 0 plus should be the same. So here it is as u of 0 minus is not equal to u of 0 plus, and therefore u of t in the limit t tends to 0 is undefined. So that's what the first part of the definition of impulse function. You have the function equal to 0 for all values of time except t equal to 0, and t equal to 0 you should have it undefined. Okay, next, second part of the definition. So impulse function has two parts of definition, so both part has to be satisfied. The second part of the definition, what does it says? It says that integral from minus infinity to plus infinity delta of t dt, this should be equal to 1. So we need to check that, which means so let's check that, minus infinity to plus infinity. So we are saying du by dt is delta of t. So if this is delta of t, then if you integrate this, what are we going to get? Okay, so this is what we need to check, whether this is equal to 1. Okay, so how can you do this? Now integral of du by dt is what? Integral of du by dt is basically u of t. So that is the integration process and derivative process. They are basically inverse of the other, but here we have a definite integral, so we need to put the limit of this. Okay, so we need to put the limit. Now if you put the limit, what is going to happen? So if I put the limit, this is from minus infinity to plus infinity, right? So this is equal to, now plus infinity, my u of t is what? U of t is 1. Minus infinity, for t less than 0, it is 0. So this is equal to 1. Okay. So this is a valid. So by satisfying both cases, it is a valid representation of the impulse function. The derivative of unit step function is an impulse function. If you want to check the sampling property, okay, check for sampling property, and if these two are satisfied, sampling property is automatically satisfied. But still, if you want to check integral from minus infinity to plus infinity, f of t into delta of t is equal to f of tau. So let's see if du by dt satisfies this. So what is it? Can it also? Okay, so here there's a catch. The catch is So you should get f of 0, right? You should get f of 0 here. Yeah. So sampling property, if you don't have a shifted version of the function, you should get the sampling property. So what I wrote earlier is not a shifted version. So here this is a shifted version, but if I write without shifting, then it will be like f of t into delta of t from minus infinity to plus infinity dt. So this will give you f of 0. Okay, so this is also called the sampling property. But if I have a tau here, then it is more general. Okay, so you need to show that it is equal to f of 0. Instead of putting delta of t, if you put du by dt, you should get it as 0. Now if you look at this expression, integral of first function into second function, so you can apply the integration by part rule. So this is equal to first of all first function into f of t into integral of the second, which is u of t with limits from minus infinity to plus infinity minus integral of minus infinity to plus infinity. Again, first function, sorry, derivative of the first function, df by dt into integral of the second, which is u of t dt. So this is equal to, so if you put the limit at plus infinity, you will get f of plus infinity into 1, because u of t is 1 for plus infinity, minus infinity it is 0. Okay, and then minus integral df by dt, and the limit, if I put so u of t definition, if I apply, this is 1 for positive time, so 0 to infinity dt. So that is equal to f of plus infinity minus now integral of the differential, so that is basically f of t with the limits 0 and infinity. So that is equal to f of plus infinity minus upper limit, if I put, that is f of plus infinity, lower limit if I put, it is f of 0. So then I will get these two cancel, and minus of minus plus, so I have f of 0. So that is a verification of the sampling property of the impulse function. Okay, so all the properties satisfied by impulse function is satisfied by the derivative of unit step function. Okay, so all the necessary property of delta of t is satisfied by d by dt of u of t. Therefore, du by dt is equal to delta of t. Okay, or in other words, we can say u of t is the integral from minus infinity to t u of t, sorry, delta of t. So this also you can see, if you integrate till a time where time is less than 0, you will get 0 for this. Okay, this integral will give you 0 if the limit of integration is less than 0. But if it go beyond the delta of t, then it will give you 1, because that is the second part for t greater than 0. Okay, so that completes that part. Okay, so now let me go back to the definition of discrete time. Discrete time, unit impulse and unit step function. So how is the discrete time? Okay, so u of, sorry, first let me say delta of n is equal to 1, not undefined, now it is 1. Okay, very different. For n equal to 0, 0 for n not equal to 0. So how do you plot it? Okay, so here delta of n is written as 1 when n equal to 0 and 0 when n not equal to 0. So this is the n axis. I have discrete values, integer values, basically 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., minus 1, minus 2, etc. And for n equal to 0, it has value equal to 1. Okay. So that is all. And all other cases, I have value equal to 0. Okay. So this is 1. So that's the definition of discrete time unit impulse. Now let's look at discrete time unit step. So u of n is equal to 1 for n greater than or equal to 0. Okay, and 0 for n less than 0. This is the definition. Okay, this is the definition. So all the integration, differentiation, they are not applicable here. That is applicable only in the continuous time domain. Okay, but in this course, as I told you, we need to look both discrete time signal and continuous time signal. Okay, so again 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Then minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, etc. So if you look at the value of this signal, at 0 you have 1, at 1 you have 1, at 2 you have 1, at 3 you have 1, etc. At minus 1 you have 0, minus 2 you have 0, minus 3 you have 0, and etc. So this is basically u of n, and this is delta of n. So we use square bracket for discrete time, and that's how it is defined. So the delta function is definition is very simple in the case of discrete time. It's slightly catchy in the case of continuous time. So you need to understand these things. So we will continue from here in the next class. Okay, we will see how we can represent any signal by using impulse signal and unit step function, etc. Now if you have any doubts, you can ask.